Just because you don't take insurance doesn't mean your clients can't use it. Mentaya is an out of network billing platform that gets clients to get back 70% back on therapy without the therapist lifting a finger. I've checked out their product and it's truly a game changer. It's what I wish I had in my private pay practice. They handle literally everything so you can focus on what matters therapy. Go to practiceofthepractice.com/Mentaya to try it out for free. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/MENTAYA to get started for free. Mentaya is amazing if you have private pay clients that want to bill their insurance. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 945. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. I am so excited to have you here with me as we kick off the new year and some new habits. We are interviewing people through that lens of saying, how do we kick off the year right? And also keep kicking off the year right, because we know that with a lot of new habits, oftentimes by February, those have disappeared. And so we're hoping to think through some new year, some new habits to really jumpstart our year, but to not just have it be for January, but to have it be for the entire duration of the year and beyond. For me, money has always been something that from a very young age, my parents valued. My parents helped me, earn money. I had opportunities to earn money. I remember in second grade, I wanted a skateboard really bad. And I wanted to build this like quarter pipe kind of mini jump thing that I had no skill level to be able to ride on, but I thought that I was cool. And I remember my dad had all the wood to go to like build the frame for it, but didn't have the wood to kind of make the big swooping part. And so I had to save up $20, which felt like $1,000,000 to me at the time. But I saved up the $20. We made the quarter pipe. I rode that thing for hours, listening to the radio and just jamming out on a Saturday morning. And that was how a lot of my life was that, if I wanted something, I had to save up for it. And even just yesterday, my daughters and I were at Target and I had some things I needed to get and they saw some dresses that they really liked. And I have the ability to just buy them but we've already done school shopping. We've already done, kind of throughout the year. These were things that they just found that they were excited about. And my one daughter, she looked at it and she said, it's full priced. This is my 9-year-old. But they each earn, through various chores and stuff, about $10 a week. And so they each usually are walking around with 50 to $100 in their little wallets. And so they're looking at it and making these buying decisions and, deciding where they're going to spend their money. And so that's something that was handed to me by my parents that I think was a very positive thing. Also, when it comes to running a business and money, that's nothing my parents knew anything about, really. I mean, they knew some things about, but it wasn't something that they passed on to me. And so that's why when I started mental wellness counseling, I got people on board. I had a bookkeeper, I had an accountant, talked to people to help me really figure out the numbers. And that's why I'm so excited about our guest today, Lauren Colson. Lauren is a numbers geek with people skills, which is awesome. I love when that happens. I would like to think of myself as a data geek that also finds the heart in private practices. So Lauren's a numbers geek with people skills. As the owner of Colson Strategies, she runs a small but mighty team. Lauren finds passion in helping business owners make the best, most informed decisions through financial information. Lauren knows you're working hard to grow your business, and as a financial expert, she doesn't take that lightly. Lauren, along with her team, take on the scary parts of finances so you can focus on what matters most. Lauren, welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast today.
Hey, thanks, Joe, for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have a numbers person. I think that to me, even just earlier today, I was doing some consulting and we were talking about kind of lead acquisition. These people are building things outside of their practice that they're going much bigger than kind of the practice. And they wanted to build these leads, through having an opt-in. And I said to them, well, let's look at the numbers for your analytics. Let's look at which pages people are actually already on to know where your audience is. And they were like, oh, I guess we should use numbers to make these decisions. So I love that you're a numbers geek because to me, that just helps us spend our time in the right places. So welcome to the show today.
Awesome. Yes, I agree. I think making data-driven decisions is the most effective way to grow a successful business.
Yeah, so, when you before we dive into some of the things that you're gonna teach us and point out to us today, would love to hear how did you get into finances, helping people figure out the leaks in their business, things like that?
Yeah. I had an undergrad degree in accounting and finance and started my career in corporate finance, large publicly traded companies. And while I liked the work, it made sense for me in my brain. I didn't have a passion for it because we were just sending reports and then oftentimes being told we had to cut headcount and cut costs. And it just felt like we weren't getting anywhere. And so I made my way to a high growth startup and I just fell in love with that environment. They had started as a small business, they were growing quickly. They had the entrepreneurial spirit, an amazing culture. They were able to pivot fast and make decisions without all the red tape. And I felt that my role on the finance side really brought value to the leadership team, to the CEO, and that they could use the financials to make data driven decisions for the first time in their business. And that is where the passion truly came. And it was like, okay, this is where I'm meant to be. This is how I can really make a difference with my skill set and my passion for numbers and help the business and the CEO or founder. And so after that experience, I started my own company to be able to help more business owners. And here we are today.
Now, let me ask about that. Oftentimes, we're given this narrative of work hard, get a good education, someone will hire you. And unless we're from a family that had businesses, oftentimes the idea of going out on our own isn't even on our radar, let alone us knowing how to do that. So how did that jump look for you to go from, having a successful career with other companies to then going on your own?
Yeah. So I knew from when I was young that I always wanted to have my own business. I had an aunt and uncle that had their own business, a cookware store that I would go and help out and spend my time there. And I just always had the desire to do that, but I never knew, like, I wasn't like, I want to open a candy shop. I didn't know what it was going to be. And honestly, I didn't think that it would be an accounting and finance company, but it just kind of happened organically. When I was at that company, I started having people reach out to me to help in a fractional CFO purpose. So, kind of focusing on financial strategy, managing the team, and that kind of go forward planning. And I got enough demand that it was like, okay, I can do this full time. And from there it grew because we do bookkeeping, controller, so higher level accounting and CFO services. And so when it was started out as just me, and I just kept needing support on the bookkeeping front to help me serve these clients. And then it just kind of evolved into okay, now we have a team of bookkeepers and we work with small businesses, and that's just kind of been the journey of my firm.
Hmm. Now, one area that you and I talked about really digging into today is money leaks in businesses. I'd love for you to give us a master class on maybe some of the leaks that are happening in most businesses and most private practices, but then even more importantly, what habits can we instill to plug those leaks?
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I'm really passionate about because I think the first piece, and you've probably heard this phrase a lot, is knowing your numbers. So if you're going to understand where there's money leaks, you first need to understand the numbers, which is essentially the story behind your business. So I want to break down a little bit about what that means. And so that is in order to know your numbers, you have to have timely and accurate financials. So if you are earlier on in your business and you're doing your own bookkeeping, it's making sure that you're staying on top of that monthly, that you're recording everything accurately, and that you're getting in a cadence of reviewing those numbers monthly. If you're outsourcing it, that you have a reliable bookkeeper that is recording everything accurately and getting you those financials timely. You don't want to look at financials too far after they've occurred, or you're going to lose the ability to make decisions based off of that. So being able to review and know your numbers and understand, okay, this is what our expenses, let's talk about expenses first. This is what our general expenses look like. I know what they are. They shouldn't change month over month, or there's seasonality in my business. So this is a period of higher expenses because we're investing in certain platforms or launching new products or service lines or whatever that may be. So knowing what those are, because it's those spikes or dips that are going to allow you to see, something's not right here. And so one of the areas I see a lot in terms of money leaks is with software expenses. And so this can happen in a couple different ways. I think we've probably all been part of something where you can try a free trial of a software and they won't bill you for 30 days. So you get it all queued up and then you decide you don't want it, you don't use it, but you forget to cancel it. And so you're getting billed month after month for that software that you're not even using. If you have a team and you're using different systems, make sure you have something in place for your offboarding process to remove licenses or seats from different software, because you don't want to pay for 10 licenses a month if you've only got 8 people on your team. So that's another area where if you're looking at your numbers month over month and you can see, our team size has shrunk, but our software costs haven't gone down. Like, those are the kind of things that you can be thinking about or working with your bookkeeper on. And on the software front, we actually have a tracker I can share with you, Joe, that allows you to kind of do an audit of what all your software tools are and making sure you're staying on top of that, because you can have software that the team is using where you're paying for 3 different tools, and maybe it makes sense to pay for one tool that does it all, and you can save some money there. So the software is a big piece that I see get away from business owners time to time.
Yeah, I think that's so easy, especially that idea that it's so easy to forget that stuff. Even just the idea of with your offboarding, making sure that when employees change or contractors change, that you're changing their access, you're changing their passwords, you're changing, how many different seats you have. That's awesome. What else would be a money leak?
Yeah. Um, Somewhat related to software, and this applies to other areas as well, but understanding your needs for the business and maximizing like pay in full or annual payment discounts. So a lot of times for software, if you pay in full, you can get up to a 40% discount for the year. So if it is a tool that we are going to use this, indefinitely, and you have the cash flow available, it's worth paying that upfront cost to get that discount.
Yeah, no, I think that, really after you know that you like a certain software, to switch to that. Like when we started using Circle for our membership community, we started with just like a monthly plan, and then we ended up doing their corporate plan because, by paying in full, we got access to a dedicated team and all these other things. Awesome. What else are some money leaks?
Yeah, unoptimized marketing spend is a big one. So if you're not tracking your ROI, which is your return on investment on marketing spend, you can be wasting a lot of money in ineffective campaigns. And so making sure that when you are spending marketing dollars, you understand what you're going to get in return. And sometimes in the beginning, especially if you're doing it yourself, you may not know. You got to test the waters, but you've got to come back to the data and you've got to see what's working and what's not. And if things aren't working, you got to shut them down. You got to turn them off and try something else, because that is a really quick way to have money go out the door without any sort of return on it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how often are you seeing that people are regularly addressing these things, or when you work with clients, are a lot of these things just kind of low hanging fruit that they're missing?
A lot of it's low hanging fruit, honestly. We usually come in, kind of clean things up, and then have a discussion to understand the business and the goals, and also like, what is your plan here, right? Like, we see all of these expenses. What sort of revenue are they driving, or what purpose do they have for the business, and kind of have those discussions to have the business owner start thinking and getting more acclimated with their numbers as well. And hold them accountable, right? Because oftentimes, especially with small businesses, you don't have another person to talk to your numbers about. Like, you're not necessarily going to talk about your numbers with your employees or your team. So having someone to kind of challenge you, almost to say, okay, well, we know that this marketing channel brings us in 2 leads a month. But is that really worth it? Could you be using those dollars to get more leads a more effective way?
Yeah. Do you own a seven-figure practice? You've probably heard me talk a lot about the Seven Figure Practice Club recently. This is a new, amazing program where we are getting together seven-figure practice owners together in a small group of 12 to work together for a year. There's so many things that seven-figure practice owners deal with that they don't have a community to ask questions, learn, and grow from. If you want to apply to be in the Seven Figure Practice Club, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/club. There, you're going to be able to read all about what the program entails. We're going to be covering all sorts of things in our monthly meetings. We're meeting twice a month. The first meeting is 90 minutes, and we're going to have 3 25-minute hot seats for you to dig in and to get questions answered, and also to help other seven-figure practice owners. The second meeting of the month is going to be one of our practice owners presenting on something they are knocking out of the park. And it's a chance to really be able to learn, teach, grow from each other in a way that you really don't find anywhere else in the marketplace. Also, in-person meetings are so important. And that's why twice a year, we're going to connect, once here in Traverse City, Michigan, and then another time somewhere else, yet to be determined. And we're going to connect, we're going to hang out, we're going to talk private practice, but we're also going to have a lot of fun. So if you want to apply for the Seven Figure Practice Club, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/club and fill out your application today. Stop what you're doing just for a second. Take a breath with me. There's so much to do in private practice, and so many resources and trainings and things like that to focus on, that we've brought it all together for you for a totally free event starting March 11th and going till March 14th. Level Up Week 2024 is coming up, and I want you to save that date. We have some amazing panels we're planning where we're bringing together people that have started a private practice, people that have started a group practice, and people that are rocking out mega group practices. Also, we're going to have some amazing keynotes and some trainings that are on very practical things. There's no need for you to bounce between Facebook groups wondering, is this advice good? What should I do next? I don't even know of the 50 things that I need to be working on, what I should do first. Instead, come to Level Up Week. It's totally free. You can be on the early bird list over at practiceofthepractice.com/level up to get all the early notifications for when we open up registration. So again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/level up. What else should people be looking at?
So staying on top of your cash flow, so your money in and out, is really important. And so you want to make sure, you're not paying anything late or getting dinged for any late fees, because that is a definite money leak. You want to make sure that you're understanding what your future cash flow looks like, because you want to know, okay, if you're growing, when do I have enough cash to invest in the next team member? Or if you're a very seasonal business, we have a lot of cash now, but is that going to get us through our real slow period, over the coming months? What does that look like? What can I anticipate? Are there costs I can cut down on or eliminate for a slow period? Or on the flip side, I've got so much cash, should I be investing some of that into other opportunities to grow? Should we be doing more marketing? Should we be hiring more staff? What does that look like? And then also being able to understand, okay, maybe I need to get a short-term loan for the dips in seasonality we have, or to cover some growth, because we really need this person, this new hire, to be able to help us grow revenue. And so knowing your cash flow is going to help you to understand what decisions you can make for the future of the business.
Now, I'm wondering if there's a difference that you see between solo practices and their money leaks compared to like larger group practices. So say group practices that have 10 or more clinicians. Do you see a lot of money leaks differences between those two?
Somewhat. When I find sometimes when it's a solopreneur, they tend to be a little bit more attuned to to their financials, to their cash flow, because it's just them. It's not as complicated in terms of additional costs or complexity of system and workflows, because you've got 1 to 2 people. Now, as the business scales, as the practice grows, your time as the practice owner gets harder to manage because you've got more demands. And so things kind of can get let go. So if you were, when you were solo doing your own bookkeeping, now you've grown and you just don't have the time to stay on top of it. Well, that's where things are going to start to fall through the cracks. And so it's like, okay, you need to make sure, let's outsource this so that this task continues to get done. I'm getting the information, the financial information that I need, but I'm not having to do it. And I'm having like a proactive partner that can alert me of things of, hey, have you been looking at these software costs? They're getting out of control, or bringing those things to the table. So it's really just the kind of the transition, which is hard for all of us, and staying on top of things and keeping a good eye as the practice grows in revenue and expenses.
Oh, so awesome. Now, I know one thing that I see a lot of with group practices, and this isn't just around money, but oftentimes when we start a solo practice, it's growing and we're wearing multiple hats, and then oftentimes we're bootstrapping it, doing that to keep costs down, and then we add a clinician, we add another clinician, and it starts to grow, and those things that maybe worked with yourself plus 1 or 2 clinicians, those cracks, those holes weren't nearly as pronounced as when you start to add 5 or 10. And so it's like if you miss one insurance payment from one clinician when you have just a handful, that's not that much. But then when you have 10 or 20, if there's those things that are missed with just even say doing wrong billing, doing wrong codes, not keeping track of how the insurance flow is going, that's way more pronounced as you start to scale. When it comes to scaling, I would love for you to talk a little bit about those either financial leaks or even just mindsets people need to have as they start to scale beyond just being a solo practice. Because I think those growing pains, people usually aren't thinking through them because they're usually just surprised to be successful. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is working. What can people be thinking through if they're thinking this year, I want to add some clinicians, I want to grow into a larger group practice? What are some of those growing pains around finances people need to be aware of?
Yeah, that's great. And I think one of them you touched on a little bit with the billing and the paying is staying on top of collections and your outstanding AR, so money that people owe you, is a big one, because as like you said, if it's much smaller when you're a solopreneur, it's easier to take a handle of. Maybe you're the one even doing the billing at that point, but if someone else is doing it, you need to make sure you have a solid process to know what is outstanding and what is your process for collecting that money, because that can get away from you. And the further along you go without getting payment, that it's going to stretch your cash flow, and sometimes make it unlikely that you'll receive payment at all. So that's a huge one to stay on top of as you're growing the practice. I think what we kind of talked about earlier in terms of knowing your numbers and being able to start looking forward in the business of what's going to happen. And so a really great tool to do that is creating a budget. And so a budget is like a roadmap for your practice. You're going to map out generally the next 12 months of activity. And I think it's such a great exercise alone to just build the budget and say, what are my revenue? What do I expect my revenue to be? Even if I'm not growing, I'm staying flat to where I'm at. What does that look like in total for the next 12 months? What expenses are fixed? Meaning no matter how much I grow, they don't change. For example, your office space, it's a fixed price. It is what it is, whether you have a team of 10 or 1. Understanding like what those costs are, understanding your variable costs. So those are ones that change with volume. So if you need to hire more people, if they're contractors or hourly versus salary, things like that, and understanding what that looks like for the next 12 months is just brings a lot of aha moments, of, wow, we're not going to be as profitable as I thought. Maybe I need to look at my pricing model. Or, wow, I didn't realize that adding another person to the team would decrease our cash flow by this much, or our profitability. It just really paints that picture of this is what it's going to look like if we do A, B, or C, whatever that looks like for your practice. And it's a way to hold yourself accountable, right? So if you're like, I want to grow 10% next year. Okay, how are you going to do that, right? So mapping out what that looks like in revenue, but what are the costs associated with growing 10%? Do you have to pay marketing dollars to get those additional clients in, or what does that look like? Is that bringing in more staff? Is that bringing in an operations person to help take stuff off your plate that's not going to help generate revenue, but is going to free up your time so you can generate revenue? So it creates that thoughtful process that's going to help you map out that strategy as things get more complicated as you're growing your practice.
Yeah. Now, as we look at just big picture concepts, are there just mindset shifts that people need to address that maybe aren't even just in their business, but maybe how they just approach money in general that you think is important to address as we're talking about this new year, new habits, especially specifically around money?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think sometimes we get scared, is a term I hear often, honestly, around our financials, especially if we're not doing well. People are like, oh, I know I had a bad month. I don't even want to look at it. And there's so much power in being able to look at a bad month and learn from it and see what can we do better. And versus just saying, I need to get more patients in the door or do this. It's like, let's look at the number and see what is causing it to be a bad month, and how can I use this data, as we talked about, to make decisions to have better months. So instead of kind of beating yourself up and saying, oh, I don't even want to look at it, or we were unprofitable this month, and kind of beating yourself up about it, think about it as a positive of, okay, I'm going to learn from what didn't work here, and I'm going to help implement those changes in future months. I think is just a big piece of, hey, we're business owners. We can all have unprofitable months, periods. We all have bad days, but not letting that get you down so that you're not taking the action to correct it is a big one.
Yeah. Well, the last question I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
Going to sound like a broken record here, Joe, but knowing your numbers and using them to make the best decisions for your business is going to really, really help you grow and stay successful. And our passion is helping business owners understand their numbers. We know that not everyone is a financial expert. Hey, if you were, you'd probably own a company like me and not a practice. And so getting a partner or working with someone that can really help get you up to speed, teach you, hold your hand through it, give you the proactive guidance that you're looking for is going to be a huge piece of your success. And I'm sure just even take the stress off of your shoulders of knowing, okay, I have some clarity. Even if it's not good, I have some clarity around what's happening in my practice, and now I need to go make some changes.
Yeah, so awesome. Well, if people want to connect with you and follow your work, where's the best place to send them?
Yeah, you can visit our website, colsonstrategies.com. That's Colson. Or you can shoot me a DM on LinkedIn, Lauren Colson. I'm pretty active over there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Knowing your numbers, being able to, cut and grow and all those things. I oftentimes will be working with consulting clients when we're looking at maybe an ad campaign and looking at, if we can just get 5% more people to click on this ad, and then get 5% more people to schedule an intake from that landing page, and then just 5% more people to come in for their intake, and then just have 5% more people continue after their intake. I mean, that's 20 to 30% growth with just looking at really tiny numbers. And so sometimes we think about our numbers as being these big, worrisome things that we, just like Lauren was saying, stick our head in the sand and just forget about and don't think about. But the reality is the numbers while still retaining the heart of your practice is what helps you grow. And if you missed it, back in December, we did this big series about 7-figure practices. I interviewed a bunch of 7-figure practice owners, what they did, how they got there. A lot of people, it was crazy when I put this out on Facebook. I just put on Facebook back in September, I think it was September, hey, if you have a 7-figure practice, DM me. And about 20 people DM'd me, and half of them right away were people that I had done consulting with years ago. I heard from people that in 2014, 2016, I was consulting with and helping start their practices, and now they're 7 or multi-7-figure practices. It's just unbelievable. So also, if you have a 7-figure practice, please know that we have a new program you can apply for called the 7-Figure Practice Club. This is going to be a club that we bring together in live events, in small groups that I lead, in co-teaching with your expertise and our team's expertise. And so this is a club that you have to apply for. Also, you have to sign a thing that says, yes, you're making over 7 figures. We're not going to pull your numbers, but we're going to trust that you're making at least 7 figures. So again, you can apply for that. We've been talking about that on the podcast over at practiceofthepractice.com/club. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. And I'm not editing that out because I want you to know that that's how it happens. You just get things done, and I could have my editing team do it, but don't be paralyzed by perfection. Just go get some stuff done. So again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/club. Thank you so much for letting me in your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.